Hey, how's it going? Vladimir Donis here. So, hey, today I wanted to jump online and talk about webinar blueprint for coaches to get more clients. Now, the first question you may ask yourself is, why webinar? Webinar is very powerful because webinar is an event. People always have had the desire to attend events, especially if those events is around something they are interested in. It's around a topic that will help them solve a problem. And ideally, the purpose of your webinar is to invite people to a presentation that's going to help them to solve a problem. So that's the idea and that's the goal. So people will attend it provided it is something that they are interested in. Now, when it comes to webinars, a lot of people think that the first place that the first thing they need to work on is traffic. And I'm going to tell you that's wrong. You don't want to work on traffic first because there's a lot of things that you want to make sure that you have in place before you even focus on traffic. Traffic is the last thing you need to focus on. And as I go through and share this blueprint with you, you know exactly why traffic is the last thing that you need to focus on. Some people are under the misconception as well that they can use a platform such as they can use landing page. Landing page is the next thing that you need. Some people are under the impression that they can use a landing page such as Zoom. So Zoom, for example, I can go inside of Zoom right now, and I can go ahead and tell Zoom, hey, I'm going to create a webinar. And then Zoom will give me a webinar registration page. And essentially what I can do is I can take that webinar registration page and I can create a registration page. And I can send people to that registration page to register for my webinar. Now, the question is, okay, why is it you shouldn't do that? There's a lot of reasons as to why you shouldn't do that. One of the main reasons as to why you shouldn't do that is tracking. You want to be able to track the people who've arrived to your page and the people who did not take action, because that is a huge part of your entire marketing goal and your marketing objectives. So one of the first things I want to talk about is tracking. You want to make sure that you set up the proper tracking, for your entire webinar blueprint. Why tracking is important? Tracking is important because it's going to be able to allow you to measure your efforts, and it's going to allow you to measure your marketing. So one of the main things that I do when I set up webinars is I set up what I call Facebook Pixel. Why is the Facebook Pixel necessary? The Facebook Pixel, what it does is that it gives me data. So when someone arrives to, say, my landing page, which is the first page of the webinar blueprint, when someone arrives to my landing page, there's two things that people can do. The first thing they can do is they can go ahead and register. The second thing is that they may arrive to the page and for whatever reason they don't register. Well, the people who do not register, I want to be able to know who those individuals are, and I want to be able to retarget those individuals and invite those individuals back to my landing page for registration. Because the idea is that the very first time people encounter something, the very first time people go to your landing page with the intent to do something, they don't always take the action. Sometimes people need multiple reminders. Well, if you have the proper tracking in place, you will know who those individuals are and you'll be able to retarget those individuals. And there's so many more benefits that I can kind of just outline as it relates to setting up the proper tracking, i.e. such as when you have the proper tracking, a platform such as Facebook, they will know and understand who the individuals are who visited your page, and they'll be able to find more of those visitors, more of those type of individuals for you. If you send your traffic, if you just have a Zoom landing page, for example, you cannot set up the proper tracking inside of Zoom because you don't own that page and you don't own that platform. So, enough about that. So so tracking, you want to make sure that you have the proper tracking in place. You want to have tracking, a tracking pixel on your landing page so that way you know who arrives to your landing page. You want to have a tracking pixel on your thank you page so that way you know the people who register. Once you know who those people are, if you're using a platform such as Facebook, Facebook is going to know who people will know those individuals who register, and Facebook can go ahead and find more of those type of individuals for you. So it's very, very, very important. So let's talk about the pages. The first page you need is the landing page. So now what's the goal of the landing page? The landing page essentially just has an outline. It has an outline around your webinar topic. So for example, if I'm doing a webinar around podcasts, and I can say, hey, today I'm going to be doing, I can just outline the fact that I'm doing a webinar around podcasting. It's going to show you how to launch or grow a podcast. So that's the first thing that you'll learn as a result of attending this webinar. It'll show you how to get more leads from your podcast. That's the second thing you'll learn. And it'll show you how to turn those leads into clients. So if I was doing a webinar around podcasting, those are the three things it would have on there just to entice and invite people to go ahead and register. So if an individual have the desire to start or grow a podcast, they would go ahead and register for that, for that webinar based on that topic. So now That's the landing page. The next page is the thank you page. The thank you page essentially, what it does essentially is it just tell people, okay, hey, you've just registered for this webinar. Thank you for registering for this webinar. Here's what you can expect next, and here's when the webinar is, and some of the things you can do in this page as well. You can give people an immediate call to action. The folks who register for your webinar, there's an indication that they're interested in the topic. There's an indication that they're trying to solve that problem. And let's just say if your end goal is to get those individuals on a consultation call, what you can go ahead and do is you can go ahead and invite those individuals and say, hey, this webinar is coming up in the next couple of days. However, what I've done is I have created some space in my calendar to be able to answer questions and to be able to help you solve this problem much faster. So right then and there, you're giving them an immediate call to action to invite them to schedule a time on your calendar. Some of the individuals, especially if they're trying to solve this problem quickly and they're trying to solve this problem right away, they will indeed go ahead and schedule a time on your calendar, because that may be your end goal anyway. So one of the main questions you want to ask yourself is, what happens when? So one of the key to this whole thing is what happens when. What happens when someone arrives to your landing page but they don't register? Well, what happens is you want to be able to retarget those individuals. What happens when someone registers, because the next thing is that they register for the webinar and they do not attend the webinar? Well, you want to invite those individuals to a webinar replay page. Let's just say after you give your webinar, your goal or your call to action is for people to schedule a time on your calendar. So then you're going to ask yourself the same question: what happens when? What happens if the individuals that you invite to schedule a time on your calendar, what happens to the individuals that does not take that action? Well, you need to re-invite those individuals to schedule a time on your calendar. So this question here is key. Being able to kind of just say what happens when, because 100% of the people who have the intent on taking a specific action, they will not do it. That's just human nature. That's just what it is. So you have to have, as a coach, as a marketer, as a business owner, you have to have contingencies. The more contingencies you have, the better, which is why I say traffic is not our main goal, our main focus at the beginning. We want to make sure that we set up everything appropriately. And at every step of the process, you ask yourself, what happens when? All right. So now, landing page, people have registered. What's the next thing? The next step is that you want to have reminder emails. You want to invite people. You want to remind people to come to the webinar, because let's just say, I'm hosting a webinar next week, Tuesday. Today is Friday. People are going to forget that they've registered for the webinar. Well, what you need to do is you need to have emails in place that goes out to them, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that reminds them about the webinar. You can use this opportunity to kind of just build rapport with them, to tell them, your backstories, to tell them why you got into this business, or to just deliver content to get them excited about attending the webinar. So that's one of the components that you need to have in place, is you need to have email components to remind people about the webinar. All right, so you need to have the email to remind people to attend the webinar, because once again, people do not do people have the right intent to do certain things, but for whatever reason they don't always go through with what they intend to do. So because of that, you need to make sure that you have these specific contingencies in place. So essentially, these are the main things that you would work on. So now the last and final piece that you need to have in place is traffic. So now you can get traffic from many different sources. If you already have an email list, you can go ahead and drive traffic from your email list to that landing page. If you don't already have an email list, then you can create a Facebook ad, and you can go ahead and get traffic from Facebook ads. So now this is where the tracking pixel come into place, tracking pixel that I talked about earlier, because if you're using a platform such as Facebook and you have a Facebook tracking pixel, well, your traffic is going to work just that much better, because now, Facebook is very big on data, and Facebook tracks all of the data. Every time someone goes to your landing page with the intent to register for the webinar, those individuals who don't register, you can collect data on who those individuals are, and it's going to benefit you in two ways. The first way it's going to benefit you is that you can retarget those individuals, meaning that you can go ahead and invite them back to the registration page. The other way it's going to benefit you is that the more data that Facebook knows about the people who click on the more data Facebook has on the people who arrive to your page, the more they can go ahead and find you more of those individuals. And then the second page are individuals who've provided you with their name and email address. Well, now that you have 50, 40, whatever the number is of people who provide you with their name and email address, Facebook is going to better understand who those individuals are, and all of a sudden is going to help your traffic to work just that much better. So that's why at the beginning I said, you know what, traffic is not the most important thing. You need to make sure that you ask yourself the question, what happens when? And you need to make sure that you have all of these things in place in order to kind of just have a webinar blueprint for your coaching business that gets you clients. Now, by the way, if you need help with this type of stuff, what I've done recently is I've created a webinar. It's a web class that is designed to show you how to start or grow an online coaching business. The problem is that a lot of people may already have coaching businesses, but they didn't launch them the proper way. So if you didn't launch your coaching business the proper way and you're struggling to get leads or to get clients, it's probably because from a launch standpoint, you did not launch it the correct way. The second thing that the web class will cover is it's going to show you how to generate leads, so consistent flow of leads. And then the third thing it's going to show you how to take those leads and turn those leads into clients. Now you can go ahead and register for the web class by going to connectionmessage.com. Or what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a link somewhere on this page, and the link is going to allow you to register for that web class. Now that's it for this episode. I'll see you on the next one.